Kia ora and welcome to this NCEA Level 1 support session on the 2025 externals for Level 1 technology. The overall external structure for Level 1 subjects are as follows. DVC have portfolios for both 1.3 and 1.4 with some details on maximum pages and file types and sizes. Digital is an exam for 1.3. This will be on the 18th of November in the afternoon. 1.4 is a mini portfolio, and this is due on the 12th of September. For MPT, 1.3 and 1.4, these are portfolios due on the 29th of October. And for all of these subjects, we're going to go through the details and what that means for the different file types and portfolios and exams. So for portfolios, there is this authenticity statement across all the standards. So that's just ensuring that the candidate's work is their own. There's some details on each of the specifications for this, but the specification statement is very similar for all three. The use of chatbots, generative AI, are not allowed and are not permitted and should not be submitted as part of the candidate's work, so ensure that is not submitted. Note that only the file types listed may be submitted, so be careful of that, and that all other file types may not be able to be marked. So specifically for DVC, evidence must be produced during 2025 school year, and design ideas or outcomes must be candidate generated. So make sure that those class exercises are not submitted. For digital, they are not required to submit a full portfolio of their work in class, and teachers need to be able to ensure that the work is done in class and not at home. It must be curated and produced under teacher supervision. For MPT, candidates will be required to create a portfolio containing written reflections of their own practice as well as visual evidence that supports that reflection. Visual evidence on its own is not sufficient to meet the requirements of the standards. Relevant stakeholder feedback should be sought from at least 2 people or groups of people who either have expertise or experience in the candidate's technology area or are from the candidate's target market. And they're encouraged to write no more than 1,200 words for each portfolio. Okay, so we're going to break it down now. DVC, external 1.3, which is due on the 29th of October. Candidates will curate evidence that demonstrates their design thinking and their consideration of people within design ideas. For best practice, if working from a visual diary, make sure students regularly scan and photograph their work. Remembering that 1.3 is not the freehand external of a project. A spatial or product project that uses great graphic practices for visual communication, but also encompasses the consideration of people. It should connect to a place that the context is designed for, whether that is a product for use underwater or a spatial solution in a place of cultural significance. Students need to keep the possible users of the outcome in mind throughout their design process to meet the needs or improve their lives. So make sure candidates will submit their evidence digitally in either 2D, 3D or 4D modes, or a combination of these. Evidence submitted will not exceed 15 A3 pages or equivalent, and where a 4D mode is used, duration must not exceed 1 minute. Evidence may be submitted as JPEG, PDF or MP4, but please make sure they're correctly edited, ordered, orientated and named. For DVC 1.4, this is also a portfolio due on the 29th of October. This year, schools will have the option of submitting material for the achievement standard as a digital or physical submission for 2025. Candidates must submit one set of drawings for one design outcome, and they should include drawings to show intent of the drawings. That's your design ideas. Orthographic minimum view, 2 views and 1 paraline. evidence submitted must not exceed 5 A3 pages, and they may be submitted again as a physical portfolio or a JPEG or PDF, correctly ordered, orientated, and named. So we need to make sure that the resolution quality of work is appropriate, and if it's hand-drawn and scanning is likely to compromise the quality of work, make sure you submit that portfolio physically. Perspective drawings are not accepted for this standard. If teachers are looking for support in identifying the best practice or appropriate methods for paraline drawings, please get in touch with us for advice. For handy information and to support you through all this process, make sure you visit the NZQA page. There are some exemplars from last year at Excellence, Merit and Achievement. There's also a really great report, which is the assessment report on both of these standards, where you get to see insights on challenges for these standards. For Digital 1.3, this is an exam on the 18th of November. Ensure in your teaching program you cover all 3 usability principles mentioned here. Candidates will study an interface of their own choice before the assessment. They're expected to write no more than 800 to 1200 words in this assessment, and questions will be in short or extended answer format. Resources will be provided within the examination, including a list of Nielsen's heuristics. For Digital 1.4, this is a mini portfolio. Candidates are to produce a mini portfolio of evidence that reflects the development of their own design. They should be created for a suitable digital technologies outcome. For example, a website, mobile app, a game, software application, animation, or a robotics project. Designs for a simple digital outcome such as a standalone logo or a poster are not suitable to submit as evidence for New Zealand Curriculum Level 6. Class exercises or group work is also not accepted. Candidates are not required to submit that full portfolio of work or their classwork, and the mini portfolio must have been produced and collated in class under teacher supervision. The mini portfolio may include, for example, a combination of research notes, drawings and sketches, images, digital illustrations, annotations, diagrams, etc. The collation of work should cover the design stage phase only for a digital outcome, and they must include a minimum of 3 different images, JPEG or PNG. Just to continue with this standard, they're expected to write no more than 1,000 words of assessment and about 3 hours of class time to individually collate their portfolio. Remember that final submission date is 12th of September 2025. The digital submission is PDF only, but you do have some choices in how you lay that out. So A4, slides, or A3, and there's some page limits there. All images included in the page limit, and the text should be a readable, plain black font, no smaller than 11 point. As with DVC, please visit the NZQA website to have a look at exemplars from last year and sample assessments and answer booklets that may help students. And also check out the assessment report on these standards for common pitfalls and what students commonly produce for Achieve, Merit and Excellence. Okay, for MPT portfolios, this is due on the 29th of October. I just pulled some information here out of the assessment report from NZQA. So candidates whose response demonstrated an authentic viewpoint or reflected their own technological practice were more likely to be awarded the higher grades. So in contrast, candidates who appear to have based their response based on templates that differed from the guidance in the assessment task, or whose technological practice appeared less candidate-led, tended to struggle. So this is about templates being provided. So be careful if you are producing templates for students that you are not leading down the wrong path. So there is some assessment specifications around this. So around teacher involvement in the production of work. So it's limited to guiding and supporting candidates in understanding and implementing relevant technological processes, limited to guiding, making well-informed and independent choices related to their design or feasible outcome. It's also limited to providing guidance on the collection of stakeholder feedback and assisting candidates in identifying credible and relevant research sources and in collecting and choosing relevant visual evidence. So there's some warnings there about over-scaffolding, and ensuring students are able to generate their own responses for their portfolio. So to provide a little bit more detail, MPT External 1.3, this is a portfolio again, due the 29th of October. In the written reflection, candidates should consider how sustainable practices were applied in the development of their design. This could include like environmental impact, positive or negative, materials and resources, their choices, including possible alternatives, disposal or reuse of waste materials and resources, economic use of materials and resources, including choice of tools, equipment or techniques, and other aspects of kaitiakitanga related to environmental responsibilities. They're expected to have carried out a design process to the final stage underpinned by technological practice for a specific person, whānau or community, remembering that there's no physical outcome required. The portfolio should include specs for their design, including the physical and functional attributes, the product's intended environment, a visual representation by annotation of the development of the design, showing where in the design process sustainable practices were used, and feedback, including visual evidence related to sustainable practices from at least 2 key stakeholders, including who stakeholders were and how that feedback was used in the development of the design. It's really important. For MPT 1.4, that's also due on the 29th of October, they're required to have trialled appropriate techniques relevant for use in a feasible outcome. So what they should include is, writing a brief and design specs. So a brief with attributes and specifications for their feasible outcome, who it's for, what the problem was that needed solving, and who their stakeholders are, including the intended environment and a picture of it. Functional attributes, students discuss 2 functional attributes. And then with the techniques, students discuss at least 2 techniques for each of the 2 functional attributes. Evidence of how each was trialled and how the outcome of each trial was compared and how they compared it. Students should provide evidence of their testing, the outcome of the trial against the attribute, what their stakeholders said about each of them in relation to the functional attributes. Then, how a decision was made, showing justification that links back to the design brief and the intended environment. Picture evidence for each of the trials is really good. Tables with side-by-side comparisons are a great way to show this, looking at outcomes to support decisions made. Students should provide an overall summary of decisions made for each of the functional attributes and how these supported the outcome being feasible for the end user and the intended environment. There's a lot in that.
For extra support, visit the NZQA website where you can look at exemplars for excellence, merit and achieve for MPT, and it's worthwhile reading the assessment report for both of those standards to look for common strengths and pitfalls from last year. For further support, please visit accord.tenz.org.nz where you can download a copy of these slides, which has all the links to the NZQA's sites. And to book a drop-in session with the Kaiārahi, you can scan that QR code or please email us at kaiārahi@tens.org.nz.